please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Celebrating 16 years of Young Turks.
Hello and welcome to the CNBC TV18 special. We are in conversation with Teresa Carlson today. She is the Vice President for the Worldwide Public Sector Practice within AWS. Thank you, Teresa, for joining us on the program today. Really appreciate you giving us your time. So let me begin by asking you, Teresa, you joined AWS in 2010 and actually founded the Public Sector Service within AWS. Can you give us a sense of how things have evolved from the point of view of how cloud computing has matured and grown?
Well, it's really pretty phenomenal because it's a good time for me to reflect back because I joined in December of 2010, and that's actually when we started our public sector business, although AWS, of course, had been going since 2006. Amazon or AWS had really never worked very much in the public sector space. It wasn't that we didn't have some customers, but we really didn't have an interaction deeply with that customer. So when I started, we had just a couple of team members. Now our business has grown a lot, and in fact we have customers in about 176 countries in public sector and teams on the ground in about 33 countries. Because in the early days, really, when we would go in and talk to customers, they would kind of wave their hands and say, no, you're not secure, we can't put anything in commercial cloud. And today that attitude has completely changed, and we actually see our customers around the world coming to cloud because of security. Also, you end up spending a lot of your time, money, and effort doing this undifferentiated heavy lifting. And what we came in and did with our government customers and education customers is we basically said, look, we'll take that undifferentiated heavy lifting, we'll let you get back to doing your mission-oriented work. And now today, it's really amazing. We have tens of thousands of customers around the world. We've grown with governments, we've grown with educational institutions.
So can you give us a sense, Teresa, what the conversations were like when you started out to what government and policymakers and bureaucrats are looking for now?
So when we go in and talk to our government customers, they would say, well, you're not secure, and we'd say, explain that. So we would go really deep into the details, and what we found is there really wasn't any security requirement that we couldn't take on or compliance requirement that we couldn't meet. So today, we really kind of fast forward today, we have met and or overachieved every security compliance and regime that's out there for our customers. And where we started with that was in the U.S. government, where they were the first to create a model called FedRAMP, which was the first cloud security model. So it's actually, in some ways, it was hard, but in some ways it was fun because we were actually changing the way they were thinking about how they operated from a security and compliance perspective. So we met in the early days what we called FedRAMP Moderate. Then we met FedRAMP High, which was, we were the first to meet both of those. And then we went on to meet kind of the most highly sensitive and classified data sets. And then what we began to see around the world were government agencies around the world looking at what the U.S. had done and beginning to pick those up. We saw the UK government, the Australian government, and then on from there. And now here we are in India, and we're seeing India now beginning to think through what their cloud security requirements are.
We have a sort of draft bill now on data privacy and protection that might become a law later on this year or early next year. Give us a sense of what it's going to take to meet some of the norms that the bill states. Primary amongst that all data, citizen data, must remain within the geographic boundaries of our country. And not just that, it's not just financial or payments data, but it's actually wide encompassing, includes e-commerce, it also includes government services, and so on and so forth. So give us a sense of how AWS is placed to tackle all of this.
Well, let me take you back a couple of years ago, because in 2016, we launched our AWS region here in India. So it was our first region that we'd launched here. I really, during that time, got a sense that cloud computing was very new to India. And fast forward 2 years, I'm back, and I've seen a step change. they're really embracing what cloud computing can do for them in terms of really paving the way for workloads, really skilling up their workers. But I would say it still is early days, but we are definitely seeing a change. I mean, just the questions I'm getting, how the...
What are they asking you now?
Well, they're diving much deeper into more sophisticated capabilities now, like our machine learning capabilities, our artificial intelligence capabilities, like what we've seen in disaster management and recovery with Kerala and the floods that were there, and how they're using mapping capabilities to actually map out and use algorithms so they can determine what buildings were affected, how do they get to those affected buildings. So really using the data that they have and algorithms through machine learning to actually capture information and move faster.
Can you give us a sense, Teresa, of what it's going to take or the kind of investments that AWS will need to make to actually make sure that it's able to meet the demand that you foresee coming in because of some of these laws getting enforced in India?
Well, here's the good news. We made those investments 2 years ago when we came here. We understand that countries want sovereign data for specific data classification. That's actually not a new thing. We've been seeing that for a very long time. And it's the reason that we are going around the world and are building regions around the world. And we've done it kind of differently from the beginning. I can't speak for other cloud service providers, but for us, we are very clear with our customers that your data is your data. You decide where your data goes, and we don't move that data. And they can today select the India region, and we actually even have capabilities that would allow their government agencies or ministries not to allow those workloads to go out of the country in terms of where they make those decisions to run those workloads. 3, we have the security requirements and configurations that we do well around the world that they can just pick up and take advantage of. And probably 4th, we already have great experience with meeting requirements like GDPR in Europe. All of our services already meet the GDPR, and we've been working with India government already in providing feedback, and we have some already created really great white papers and tools that they can take advantage of. Now, I understand there's no law yet, and they're just in the process of formulating. But once that's there, we're already ready to go. What you if you look at AWS around the world, we never stop making investments. So when we're there, if you watch us, we continue to add edge locations. I think we have 5 here today, and we continue to add more infrastructure. So we keep adding. So daily you'll find, you may see us announce another edge location, or you'll see that we're hiring more people in the country. So we intend to keep investing in India. We're just getting going.
Because you look at public policy globally, can you give us a sense, Teresa, of these laws in India, how they measure up to or compare to what you see in developed markets like the US, Europe, or even parts of the APAC, Australia region?
I think it's very comparable. What you all are doing today is very familiar. But at the same time, you want the flexibility where you don't have standards that are so onerous that you lock out innovation and you lock out trade. So when we go into a country, we really provide them the best practices that we see around the world that allows that flexibility, because when you're a digital country, and India has such a young population and the opportunity to create new entrepreneurs and startups, you've got to make sure that the laws and policies that you're creating are, again, protecting your citizens, but also allowing for flexibility so that you offer the opportunity for new entrepreneurs to create businesses.
I think it's also prudent here, Teresa, perhaps to talk about the conversation around cloud computing versus on-prem. I know a few years back it seemed like it was going to be cloud computing all the way, but we are seeing CTOs, CIOs around the world actually talk about on-prem as well, keeping some of the data information that's mission critical to a company or to a government service on-premise. You have competitors in this area as well that are doing work. Give us a sense of, from the vantage point that you have, what are you seeing as the trend lines that are emerging?
We are seeing still a really aggressive move to the cloud. And that is because the capabilities are just so much more vast and they're getting in an on-prem cloud. So your capabilities are limited and your tools get outdated very fast. And if you look at last year, we launched over 1,400 new services, which was up, from 24, 7, 8 years ago. Well, when you're in an on-prem data center, you have very limited kind of services and resources. Now, with that being said, there are some workloads that we see our customers just they'll leave there until they're ready to rebuild. And also in workloads that are kind of old and legacy, we see them kind of live there. I remember the CTO in the UK government, they have a set of data centers they call the ship of the doomed. And those are for kind of workloads that they're going to end of life over time, but their goal in the UK government, as an example, is they want everything to be cloud native, which is basically, first and foremost, they'll put everything in the cloud that they can because they know that they can innovate off of that and scale it and have the right security model and right patching capabilities. And we can try it and pay for only what we're using to try that, and we can fail fast and recover. And we're just seeing governments now move really fast in areas like, we just talked about disaster management, citizen services, justice and public safety, and then the skilling opportunities we see. And I'm also seeing a big move where you're seeing telecommunication providers actually make a conscious decision that they're not going to be in the data center hosting business. They're actually kind of shutting down those services and they're moving to now capabilities that are more managed service capabilities that they can take advantage of from AWS. And that's pretty exciting because when you can begin to offer your citizens and customers more capabilities versus charging them for kind of, again, that undifferentiated heavy lifting, you're not getting the best out of what you need.
All right, Teresa, hold that thought. On that note, it's time for a very short break, but keep watching CNBC TV18 special. We are in conversation with Teresa Carlson of Amazon Web Services.
Celebrating 16 years of Young Turks.
Welcome back to this CNBC TV18 special. We are in conversation with Teresa Carlson, who's the Vice President for the Worldwide Public Sector at Amazon Web Services. Teresa, before we went into a break, we were talking about the challenges that a company like Amazon or even a country like India faces as far as finding skilled engineering talent in cloud computing is concerned. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the initiatives that you have to ensure that the pipeline for engineers or people coming into this field are met?
One of the things, and we see this, by the way, globally, one of the first things I hear from presidents, prime ministers, IT ministers, down to the individuals kind of running the day-to-day operations of a ministry is we need help with skilled workers in tech. I mean, this conversation has not changed. And what I tell everyone is it's great to have the newest capabilities, but you've got to make sure you have the individuals capable of running those for you. And so within India, I think you just have this really unique opportunity to skill up people from the villages in doing kind of immersion training to get them badged and ready to go for skills, all the way through individuals in postgraduate degrees for higher level learning, machine learning and these kind of capabilities that you need to bring together. And also being able to teach the right brain and the left brain. Both the tech skills directly and the ability to write and communicate that effectively in order to make the business or the mission run really effectively. So for you all here, I think one is getting more experience and continue to build more applications in the cloud that you can do right here in India, making sure that you take advantage of those security capabilities that are inherent to the AWS cloud, and really ensuring that you understand how to design and architect. So back to what do we need to do to help? We need to make sure that we're working very closely with all the ministries, that when they actually make the move aggressively to the cloud, they're designing and architecting their workloads well. They're using encryption standards. They make sure of how they hold the keys and that they have, that they're really setting up access to their data and the requirements properly. that we train and educate so that they have all the skills they need internally. And I would say the last big element for this is the partner community. We really have to build a partner community here. So we're continuing to kind of force multiply. And that force multiplication actually helps an economy grow. And for me, of course, another area is just ensuring that we're empowering women and diversity in the environment. Because you have such an amazing set of women and a diverse environment here out in your villages that we're really reaching out not only to the kind of, you know, the main stage actors of what we're doing here, but we're reaching out to the diverse community and really skilling that talent in a way that we can take advantage of them.
Given that the magnitude of problem is so large, Teresa, is it imperative for AWS to actually work with its competitors to make sure that, especially in a country like India, we are able to deliver the kinds of products and services that you speak of? And to that extent, even as far as skilling is concerned, what is the kind of partnerships that we might actually see AWS have with its competitors here?
We're very unusual in that we kind of got a 7-year head start. And it shows by our capabilities that we're driving into the market. And the other thing, that we're really customer obsessed. And we don't pay attention to the competition. We really focus on our customers. And if our customer says, you know, this is their need, we innovate on behalf of them. And in fact, 95% of all those services that I talked about in the last year, even and beyond the 1,400 plus, 95% of those are all customer driven. And that's a big deal to us, because when our customer says, here's what we need, we really think about that, and then we innovate on their behalf and roll their services out. And we really have a very open model where there's not really any provider we're not working with. We run more Windows workloads than Microsoft does on AWS than Azure, as an example. So we work very closely with Microsoft. We run Oracle databases. We partner with Cisco. We have a great partnership with SAP. We have a fantastic partnership with kind of a who's who in tech. So it's exciting for us because we have a really open model that really allows the customer to have choice. And when it comes down to it, kind of that's what we want to drive, is choice for the customer. So if they want to run a Windows workload or a Linux workload, we let them make that decision, and we just make sure they have the right tool for the right job that they want to run.
In the context of skilling and training manpower, let's also talk about the Women in Tech program that you have at AWS and at Amazon. Actually, you are kind of spearheading a lot of the gender equality and women in tech conversations for Amazon. Give us a sense of where diversity stands at Amazon. Give us a sense of the We Power Tech program that you run and what you hope to achieve with it.
A lot. There's a lot that still needs to be done, and we are very passionate at Amazon and AWS about driving diversity across our business. There's really just not enough we can do right now, because the numbers just kind of speak for themselves. And we have just a trend line that you get, as an example, young girls kind of excited, at ages 13 to 16, and then they kind of just like, okay, they just kind of dwindle off. So we've got to start earlier. We've got to encourage them to take more STEM classes. And for girls in general, what I find, and when I have conversations with them, they want to make an impact. So, getting them involved in a way in tech where they're seeing that what they're doing is really having an impact on society or some mission that they care about. So we have kind of different programs we're doing, but We Power Tech is really interesting because it sort of came out of almost 7 years ago. We had a luncheon at our reInvent conference, which then we only had about 5,000 people, and last year we had about 35,000 people. 6 years later, but we had a luncheon with a panel. And we realized at that time we just weren't doing enough. And then now that's grown into a whole program globally where we really focus on diversity and inclusion. We have both partners working with us on this. We have teams of volunteers and individuals inside the company that are going out and actively mentoring. We do programs where we educate young women and other groups on what does it mean to be in tech, how do you get going, what kind of jobs are here, and really kind of giving them a roadmap of how they can get into the technology space. And then, you know, there's a lot more we can do, but when I'm around the world like this, I try to meet with the women leaders in tech or businesses, and we talk in general, what can we do in that community to make a change? And it starts with every person. Every single person is kind of responsible for taking ownership of what they individually can do here. So we're trying to put a programmatic approach in place with mechanisms that can really scale. And I'm excited about the results, but there's just a lot more we can do. And we had a panel today with some amazing women here in India and great questions from the audience. So again, we're creating momentum by really bringing awareness to the problem.
With your years of experience, Teresa, and working on issues around women in technology or women in business, and actually furthering the cause of women moving up the pipeline, so to speak, can you give us a sense of some of the levers that you see that have worked positively, and some of the levers that are talked about, debated, that you feel don't really give the kind of results that they are expected to give?
Well, the one thing that I'm seeing that's really working is you've got to know what you're dealing with. And so you have to understand your numbers individually. You have to understand within your business, what are, you know, how many women do you have? What does your diversity look like? Are they staying? Are they leaving? So you have to dive into the details. So I know that sounds kind of, but you have to know what's actually going on in your business. And then you have to ask questions so you understand, why are people staying? Why are people going? So you have to address the problem kind of head on. And, you know, we find things like, you know, just kind of simple things that are fixable. Like with some of the women in my business, I sit down and said, you know, what can we do differently? And if you said, well, don't write that job description like that. It sounds like it's for a man. And you look at it and it says a ninja, be a ninja. And they're like, I don't want to be a ninja. So it's like, it's simple kinds of things, some that are very fixable. Also with women, encouraging them to have a seat at the table. You know, teaching them how they have a voice and taking advantage of that voice because they're smart and they're capable. So sometimes it's little things that make a really big difference in someone's career. So paying attention to those things, those mechanisms, talking about them, and then scaling them in training across your organization. Those things work and they're impactful. And then by the numbers, look at your numbers, know your numbers, and impact those numbers on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis. The things that I don't think work are women kind of getting together and complaining about what's not working. I see a lot of, you know, kind of conversations about this, you know, like we need more of this and we need more of that. Well, that's great to bring up the problems, but then you have to have a solution and an action plan for everything that you see. And you've got to dive deep into that and then solve it as you go along. And I think if we're really not just intentional, but have the mechanisms in place that really drive this, we're going to see change. And I also see a group of amazing women and men around the world now that are much more focused on this. And at Amazon, I can tell you we are very focused, and I think we're going to see real change. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, but you can't stop kind of day to day paying attention to what your goals you're trying to achieve. You got to have a long-term view of this.
Well, have a long-term vision, and I guess it's always day one for you guys, Teresa, at Amazon. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today, and thank you very much for watching.
Celebrating 16 years of Young Turks.